Well, this is Alan Lonely Bookshelf. I'm here with bookshelf number two. This is the empty shelf right there. You can see, and I had 40 views on the first one, so I thought I'd do another one. I show you this hoodie I'm wearing. So it's I bought this at a thrift store here in Dallas, but sometimes when I wear it, somebody will look at me and said, "Oh, you're from Canada." No. So the majority of these books are going to be biographies. There are some others here that are not biographies. So yeah, let's get into it. The first one is a book that I really enjoyed. This is Lenin Sue, The Last Days of the Soviet Empire by David Remnick. This came out in '94, I believe. This is very good. I read this in a couple of days. I think one of my books fell. Oh well. Uh, yeah, it came out in 1994. The paperback edition of this is very well uh, worth the read. There's once I remember one in here where David Remick was talking about how well how the Soviet Union didn't want Western influence like music or theater, cultural events, entertainment, that sort of thing. And so what the people of the Soviet Union did, they got X-rays, like a X-ray of a broken bone that had been discarded after they didn't need it anymore. They discarded it. So the people would get those X-rays and they would put grooves into the X-rays and they had music for the Beatles or some other groups, Rolling Stones or something, and they would play music and they called it music off the bone. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. So this is a very good book. The next book is going to need some explaining because this is called The House of the Dead, so Siberian Exiles under the Czar by Daniel Beard. This is by Vintage Press, and this one came out in 2016 now. And I had some very old photographs in here. This is a very short book. It's only about 350 pages, but it's about the Russian Siberian penal colony, at the beginning of the 19th century until the Russian Revolution. The Tsars exiled millions of people and their families to the cast. In fact, the book I had over there in my first video, which talked about the lost piano Siberia, it actually mentions the Sakhalin Islands, which are right above Japan. That's where they put them, the exiles, the prisoners. And one of them was, several of them were chained to wheelbarrows, and they even had to sleep with the wheelbarrows. So this is, I haven't actually just dipped into this one. But the reason I said this is going to be an explanation is because 2 years ago, excuse me, 2 years ago, I had purchased a bound volume of Century Magazine. This bound volume goes from May 1888 to October 1888. And I have read a couple of articles in here previously, and I bought it in 2020 when Faith and Books had the May is Magazine Month. So I took part in that and read a couple of the articles from here. I read the one on Theodore Roosevelt, who wrote about his uh, travels up in the Badlands. Walt Whitman, uh, couple about the Civil War, because the Civil War in 1888, the Civil War is only 24 years old. It's not that long. It wasn't that long. And military systems, Mexican campaigns. But one of the articles it had in here was by George Keenan, and he does a first-hand report on Siberia and the exile system, and this runs throughout this magazine. Excuse me. And there's very long articles in here, because at that time, 1888, nobody had radios or TV or the internet. It shows an old map of Siberia. And so the wording on here, the wording is also pretty, very good. There's another photo in here. And yeah, it's because people didn't have any radio or TV, they had to do something with their time, so they read articles. And that's the way a lot of the Mark Twain actually wrote his first volume, his first I think it was Huckleberry Finn, might have been Tom Sawyer, one of those two. And it was printed in Century Magazine before it was put into book form. And that's the way a lot of literary authors did. There's a book I'm going to show you just a little bit later of Tolstoy. Tolstoy printed his book, War and Peace, in a literary magazine, literary journal, alongside Dostoevsky's novel, Crime and Punishment. Get your hands on that one. That'd be great. And there's one other one I'm trying to find. This is Sheriff's Work on the Ranch by Theodore Roosevelt, illustrations by Frederick Remington. So yeah, this is the. So that's, I got the. Let me pick up the ones that fell. All right. Yeah, this one is not a. This one is not biography. This is the Divine Comedy by Dante. It shows all three of them: Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso. This I've only read Inferno. I haven't read the other two yet. This one was printed by Fall River Press out of New York, and it came out in 2008. But the illustrations on here, you see some of the illustrations. Yeah, I haven't read the other two yet, and I'll get to them. See who the illustration is by. Oh, it's translated by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, and illustration by Gustav Dorr. Okay, let's go into the biographies. The first one I have read. This is Tolstoy. This is library edition. Library had a book sale back in 2019, the last time they've had one. And this is by Rosamund Bartlett. This is a very, very good biography of Tolstoy. And yeah, it shows a lot of insights. And even has a family tree in here. And it says a lot of the struggles. So yeah, this is a very good biography. There's a lot of some photographs. This is told story when he was very young, army uniform. And it says here that he worked through 1,000 plus page of the Orthodox dogmatic theology, as well as other key expositions of the Eastern Christian doctrine by authors ranging from St. John of Damascus to other recent Moscow metropolitans. And he declared that he had read the Orthodox dogma, the theology, from cover to cover. So, yeah. And he wrote a book called Investigation of Dogmatic Theology, which was finished in 1882. So, I highly recommend this Biographies by Rosamund Bartlett. The next biography I haven't read, and this is Caravaggio. And this is by Life and Times by Andrew Graham Dixon. This is by Alan Lane Press. Bought this at a thrift store. And it says Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio, 1571 to 1610, lived through the darkest, most dangerous life of any great painters. And he lived in Milan, Rome, and Naples. And so this is one of his paintings inside front cover. Yeah, it's called The Life of Sacred and Profane. And this came out in 2010. This is a famous painting on Medusa. A couple of other famous works. The next one is, I haven't read. It's called Stalin, the first in-depth biography based on explosive new documents from Russian secret archives. Now, I was watching an interview with Simon Sebag Montefiore, who wrote a book on Stalin called I forgot the name of it. Anyway, he mentioned the fact that when he wrote the book that it was giving him nightmares, and that when the archives are open, they're only open for a short time, then they close them. Maybe not a short time, maybe a year they'd be open, and they'll close them. This one is by Edvard Radzinsky, author of The Last Tsar, and this is Stalin. And this is a library copy. I probably got it at the same time I got the Tolstoy one. And yeah, this one was published in 1996. It has resources, but that's about all. Anyhow, that's interesting. The Tower of Babel and the Great Dream were no more. So, yeah, there we go. This one is The Last Tsar, The Life and Times of Nicholas II by the same author, Edvard Radzinsky, same author as the Stalin one. So, The Life and Death of Nicholas II by Edvard Radzinsky. When Edvard Radzinsky wrote this book, when the book was published, one of the well-known biographers in Russian who wrote did Peter the Great, Catherine the Great, and he also did one on the Romanovs, Robert K. Massey. When Brzezinski came out with this book, Robert K. Massey had to write another book on the Tsars because Brzezinski found a document in the secret archives which stated that it was Lenin who gave the orders to execute the Romanov family. So, but Robert K. Massey had to write a second book. And the problem I have with this book is that it doesn't show any flaws in it. The Tsar Nicholas II didn't have any flaws in this book, and it didn't show that because he did. He had a lot. There was one called Bloody Sunday in which people were led by a priest protesting, and Nicholas II's army just fired upon him. And he also led troops. In fact, this is a picture of him in World War One. He led troops into World War One and was defeated. And yeah, he wasn't very a good leader and didn't do much for the people. But this book doesn't point that out. The next book is this was John Manchin's biography of George Herbert Walker Bush called Destiny and Power. I was at his son, George W. Bush, former President George W. Bush. I was at his library, presidential library, to hear John Meacham being interviewed by former President George W. Bush about this book. It was just when it had just come out. And by the way, George Herbert Walker Bush, his library is a lot better than George W. Bush's library. A lot better. Probably because he's been in office longer. And this is by Random House in New York. And when did this come out? It doesn't have I don't see a date on here. But I paid for the interview and got the book for free, and it was autographed. Yeah, you can tell that's autographed. Kind of like the time I got Sergei Khrushchev's autograph, and he just did a circle. So anyway, yeah, this is a very good biography, and really enjoyed it. There's a guy on who actually does presidential biographies, and he has a website about and he's read all of them, and he gave this one 4 stars. Speaking about Khrushchev and Sergei Khrushchev, this was the book I purchased, and found at the thrift store like a month ago. I believe it was early December. And this is Nikita Khrushchev and the Creation of a Superpower. And this is by Penn State Press. And this is by Sergei Khrushchev, his son. Khrushchev was the first secretary of the Communist Party from 1953 to 1964. And during that time, if you recall that time, it's only just 11 years that the Berlin Wall went up, the Sputnik went up, you had the Cuban Missile Crisis. There's a lot of things going on between the United States and Russia. And he did, and he came in right after Stalin died. Nikita Khrushchev did. See, there's a missile. So he basically did a lot of reforms for the former Soviet Union, and taking them out of sort of the dark ages that Stalin had put them in, and the living in fear that a lot of the Russian people lived in under Stalin's reign. So and he tried to, do a lot of reform, but he was pushed out of power, and Brezhnev came in. The next one is a short biography of Peter the Great. This is by Lindsay Hughes. It's very short. It's only about 250 pages with index and bibliography. I think this was a Yale University Press. Came out in 2002. Yeah, so this is a very short biography. I have not read this one yet. Excuse me. The next two. Let me get water here. The next two are by the same author, and this is Antonio Frazier. This is Cromwell, the Lord Protector. Now the next one is, let's show you that one. This is Mary Queen of Scots by Antonio Frazier. I'm not much into British history, either the royals or anything else, and this is the only two books I have on British royalty or history of England. And this is about Delcourt Press. Look, it was only $10 when it came out. Pretty old. Yeah, this one. This is a more famous book of Mary Queen of Scots. So you have the timeline of the English succession. New York Times Book Review on Sundays. They usually have a. What's the word? They have sort of a interview with the author, an author or a famous person, asking them what kind of books they read. This is Scottish Succession. And they did one on Elton John one time. And Elton John said his favorite author was Antonio Frazier. So this one is their most famous book. It's about 600 pages for $10. That's pretty good. This one is, of course, Cromwell, the Lord Protector. And I forgot that this is $12.50. My goodness. Inflation. And this one came out in 1973, and this is by Knopf Books. I have not read this one yet. And this one, of course, came out by Delcourt Press, and it came out in 1969. So, of course, the author's picture on the back, and this one on the back. There was somebody one time, Stephen King had all this on his books, and his author picture on the back of the book, and somebody just put Stephen King books with the author with Stephen King's picture profile on the back, and just you had to guess what the book was. So there you go. Take a guess. So I think I have a couple more. And this one I was actually sent to me to review it. And I really didn't think it was all that good. And this is Fearful Majesty, Life and Reign of Ivan the Terrible by Benson Broderick. And this came out in 2014. And the last one is basically the sayings of Vladimir Lenin. And basically, that's what it is quotes. When a liberal is abused, he says, "Thank God they didn't beat me." When he's beaten, he thanks God they didn't kill me. When he's killed, he will thank God that his immortal soul has been delivered from its mortal clay. And no mercy for the enemies of the people, the enemies of socialism, the enemies of the working people. So, yeah, he's just, and all it is quotes about him. And he probably said a lot more, but it's been a lot bigger book. Well, thank you. That's been the Library Shelf Tour number 2. And thank you for watching, and have a good day.